Hello and welcome to Enneagram and Coffee, the podcast. I'm your host, Sarajane Case, and I am so happy to have coffee with you today. Okay, so we have 2 more episodes where I am sharing my IGTV content here to the podcast. So just be aware that the content is going to be maybe a little bit different in style. The delivery might be a little bit different, and the sound might be a little bit different. So you've been warned. Hello. So something that might surprise you is that I do my best to not ask people their Enneagram number. Now, this has been something that I have learned over time. I used to be not very good about this at all. Actually, I never even considered that was something not to do. But this has really changed over the course of the last year. I used to be a lot more inclined to not only ask people their number, but try to help them type themselves. That has changed. I'm a lot more likely now to maybe not ever even bring up the Enneagram at all, or to ask people like, can I ask your type? I'll attempt to help you figure out your type. Like if you ask me to. I was at a party this weekend and someone was like, can you help me figure out my type? And I would ask them questions, because that's a delight for me to ask people questions about themselves and to help them to really figure it out. But at the same time, what used to happen is I would kind of force that on people as a way to kind of replace intimate conversation, as a way to help them find their number, but not necessarily connect to who they are, right? So the reason that I bring this up and the reason that I'm making a video about this that's going to live in our feed for eternity is because I see so much in Enneagram culture that kind of surrounds it as a talking point. It allows us to say, what's your number? And then we leave it there. And we might say, as a type 7, I blah, 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 blah. And here's why I want to talk about this. So the first thing is that when we ask someone their Enneagram type, it's actually kind of a personal question. And the first time that this really struck me was in someone who's kind of well-known, commented on one of our posts, and immediately everyone was like, what's your Enneagram type? Here's where I feel cautious about that, is because the reality is that they may not want to share that with us. They may not want to open up in that way. Because what we're asking when we ask someone their Enneagram type is like, what's your greatest fear? What's your deepest motivation? What's the story you tell yourself about how you have to be loved? And that's big. So at this point, when I meet someone and maybe we're talking about the Enneagram, I'll try my best to say, can I ask you your Enneagram number? Or I might not ask at all. I love hearing about people's numbers. I love knowing what number people are, but I also know that I want you to make the choice to give that to me. The second thing is, again, we've talked about this before, but I really want to reiterate that it's so easy to replace true intimacy with a number. And what we think we're doing is we think we're learning about someone, but the reality is that we're not. So what I encourage you to do is to have the conversations of the Enneagram without using the Enneagram. If you want to talk to someone about their deepest childhood wounds or their biggest fears, ask them, and then they can really answer. Because we don't really learn that stuff from a number, which brings me to type 3, which is I can't really know that much about you from your number, right? Like I can think that I do. I can think that I can pull out patterns from your life. But the truth is every single individual is so unique and has lived so many lives and has had so many experiences. And I'm limiting so much about my ability to learn you, to know you, to connect with you when I think that I can sum you up by knowing your number. Instead, I want to greet everyone that I meet with curiosity and interests and the genuine feeling of like, I'm meeting you for the first time, because that's the reality of the situation. Knowing your number is not giving me a lead on who you are as a person. I would rather learn that from you authentically than try to sum you up into some kind of like system. As someone who teaches the Enneagram, loves the Enneagram, this may sound crazy to be like, don't talk about the Enneagram. But what I mean by this is really just greet people with a seeking of actually knowing them, try to understand them for who they are. The Enneagram might be a great starting point, but also it might be a great point of deeper connection after you've built some trust there. The other thing is that I really feel like sometimes we use the Enneagram as a way to we give someone like the same path that we've been on, right? I love the Enneagram, so you're going to love the Enneagram. I want you to go on this journey. Tell me how it goes. I'm so big. I do that all the time. But what we really want to do is we really want to connect to people. And I want people to have the journey that is the right journey for them. Their Enneagram journey is going to look different than mine. Their growth journey is going to look different than mine. And I want to encourage people to go on that journey that's right for them and the timing that's right for them. And I want to support them in their own exploration versus trying to get them to experience what I experienced. That's hard to do because the Enneagram is so magical and it is so altering and complex and interesting and deep that I think when we experience it, we want it for everybody. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I'm not saying don't invite people into this, right? Obviously, but more so to just remember that these are people. These aren't numbers. Every single person is so complex. And if you can give them the chance to connect with you honestly, and if you can give yourself the chance to replace your number, if you're using a sentence that says, I'm a type blank, what if instead you say, I'm someone who's driven by freedom, flexibility. I don't like to be restricted. There's so much more richness and complexity that can come from that. But ultimately, the main reason I made this video, if you take nothing else away from this, I want you to walk away knowing and holding the space for this is actually a really intimate thing. And so when we meet someone and we insist that they share their number with us, or we insist that they figure out their number with us, we're asking them for a level of intimacy that we may not have earned with them. And so I encourage you instead to, if you feel comfortable asking them the direct question, if you feel comfortable saying, what is your biggest fear? Then have that conversation. And really let yourself meet each person organically and new and fresh and hear them for the first time versus thinking that you have them figured out because you know a number that they identify with. I think this video could be surprising, right? As someone who creates this account or, does content like this, because I love the content we create. So I think it could seem surprising, and I would love to hear what you think. If this kind of resonates with you, if this feels like a new idea to you, what that feels like for you. Let's have a conversation about it in the comments below. Until next time, we have one more video for the week in our celebration of the anniversary. And then, we'll get back to our regular scheduled content. I'll see you in the next video.